acting Attorney General Todd Blanche will face the Senate Judiciary Committee for his confirmation hearing to lead the Department of Justice. Now, he's expected to face tough questions on the now defunct $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund. A federal judge this week called the lawsuit which led to that fund an effort to, quote, manipulate the judicial process. And Senate Democrats are also expected to call on an Epstein survivor to testify at today's hearing. Survivors of Epstein's abuse have released a series of PSAs doubting Blanche's credibility to carry out the role after personal details were leaked with the release of the files. At the time, he was Deputy Attorney General.
Todd Blanche failed us. He failed victims everywhere.
We deserve better.
Our country deserves better.
Vote no on Todd Blanche for Attorney General.
Vote no.
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 Vote no on Todd Blanche.
Joining us now in the group chat, Jess Michaels, one of the survivors of Epstein. I think I saw you in that video. And there's a couple issues I think survivors have had with Blanche. One is when the department released files, they had redacted all of the potential abusers and somehow unredacted all of your faces and names and images, right? So there's that. And then around this time last year, Blanche interviewed Ghislaine Maxwell. And after that, she was transferred to a lower security prison. And he was asked a while back about the goals of that interview. And here's what he said.
The point of the interview was not for me to pressure test every single answer she gave. Of course not. The point of the interview was to give her an opportunity to speak, which nobody had done before. And so she had been in prison for many, many years, and she had offered to speak on many, many occasions, and she was never given that opportunity.
Is this one of the sources of your frustration with him, or is there something more?
Well, it really is the second sweetheart deal in this case, right? It replicates exactly, very similarly what Epstein got. So it's very frustrating that Ghislaine Maxwell is getting more protection, more attention from the DOJ than any of the victims. I mean, 9 hours with her and we've had 0.
Here's what he said when people were asking him, hey, are there going to be any other investigations? What more could there be? He said this in February.
I can't talk about any investigations, but I will say the following, which is that in July, the Department of Justice said that we had reviewed the files, the quote Epstein files, and there was nothing in there that allowed us to prosecute anybody. Now, there's a lot of correspondence, there's a lot of emails, there's a lot of photographs, there's a lot of horrible photographs that appear to be taken by Mr. Epstein or people around him, but that doesn't allow us necessarily to prosecute somebody.
What is it that you would expect under a Blanche Justice Department, different from a Bondi Justice Department? Or is the issue Trump?
I don't know whether the issue is Trump. I mean, Blanche is Trump's personal criminal attorney, so we, can make an assumption there. What I know is that Pam Bondi said that Blanche was in charge of the release of these files. And so he is responsible for the egregious mistakes that were made and that have never been addressed. When he says there is nothing to investigate, this is what I'd like to ask you. If there are 6 million files collected over 20 years, to the point where in 2015, a DEA task force, literal cartel hunters, joined in across multiple departments working on this, spending millions of taxpayer dollars, and he's saying it was for 2 people.
I think at a certain point, the administration has been hoping that this would go away.
Yes.
It seems pretty clear. Terry, will it, or does every time someone like this comes up, and Jess comes up and says, hey, don't forget about us, it doesn't go away?
Well, I certainly hope it doesn't go away, at least until we get justice for the victims. And I think there's a lot of people that agree with me. And
do you think the administration believes that? If they're saying there's nothing more to investigate, do you see an administration that says there's more justice to be gotten?
I don't. I would say that there are people within the administration that do want to get justice here. But we have to remember, 20 years, 6 million files. This is a failure not of Todd Blanche, not of Donald Trump. This is a failure of every single FBI administration, every single DOJ official, every single president since then.
We've said it's 5 administrations. In fact, this is just falling in line.
Yes.
So that's the problem, is they say, oh, well, we released files. No, you actually created the exact same situation that we've said over and over again for decades, that no one is investigating what we're telling them is there.
You know, Jess used the phrase sweetheart deals, and I want to follow up on that because the whole debate over the Trump administration settlement with the IRS is that was kind of a sweetheart deal, that the administration settled with itself, and in that settlement gave itself money and, you know, all kinds of privileges, no audits, for example. Do they foresee a Blanche being on the defense for the whole day today for more than even what Pam Bondi had to deal with?
They definitely believe that Blanchett's going to be on the defense. He's been preparing for this moment. I think he will get a lot of questions about that fund. Thom Tillis, senator from North Carolina, we know he's retiring, has said that he wants to push Blanche through, but he won't unless he gets the answers that satisfy his questions over that fund. He's not the only one that feels that way. And so you're going to see him get a lot of questions about that. You're going to see him get a lot of questions about some of these criminalization efforts of people who are perceived to be Trump's foes. You're going to see him get a lot of questions about the downsizing of DOJ. They've lost thousands of career attorneys and other folks within the building, and folks directly link that to Todd Blanche. And so you're going to see him get questions, really heated questions, from a plethora of different senators on both sides on a bevy of issues that he's going to have to be prepared for and answer correctly so that he gets at least the Republicans on his side when it comes to pushing through.
Do you expect answers or do you expect stock replies?
So we actually started Blanche Bingo in our group chat.
In your group
all
chat?
Of the because we have certain expectations of what, you know, will there be a binder? Will there say there was nothing to investigate? You know, there's
Check, drink.
Exactly.
Gallows humor on a story
Exactly.
that I don't know how you guys have had any resilience through, and you have. You have.
Can I say one thing when you're talking about Tillis too? Since Blanche won't meet with us, we are asking senators to meet with us. Senator Tillis, Senator Cornyn, Senator Kennedy.
Have they said yes?
No, we can't get through to their office. So they're, as we understand it from Senator Tillis specifically, he said unless there's something, you know, some reasonable reason for me not to pass Todd Blanche through, I'm going to pass him through. And I'm like, well, hello, there are over 1,000 of us. Those are reasonable.
Artie, I would say the dynamics in the Senate have changed now for this confirmation process.
Especially post all these primaries.
People have nothing to lose, and quite frankly, they've seen the behavior of some of these cabinet officials and secretaries, and so the political dynamics will certainly have an impact on whether or not he's confirmed or not, or how swiftly he is confirmed or not. And I think people are looking for something different because the American people are now demanding something different.
I think how swiftly maybe is issue. Well, thank you so much for talking with us. Hope to see you back. Jess Michaels.
Todd Blanche is staring in the face of tough questions and a razor-thin margin. We are standing by for hearings to see if the acting Attorney General can earn confirmation for the full-time gig. The loss of a single Republican vote in the committee could stall the nomination. And there are Republican votes in the balance over several issues, including Blanche's initial backing of a $1.8 billion fund that many believe would go to the president's political allies. Blanche has said the administration is not pushing it anymore, but Republican Thom Tillis is demanding that be codified by a vote.
The underlying issue is the 1776 fund needs to go away.
Could you vote against him if he does not handle that question appropriately?
I've said that the 1776 fund has to be certainly and completely ended for me to feel comfortable with moving forward.
So other subjects sure to arise. Blanche's handling of the Epstein files. Remember, former Attorney General Pam Bondi basically pointed the finger at Blanche, saying he ran the show there. There was this controversial interview with Ghislaine Maxwell and her subsequent move to a less restrictive minimum security federal prison. Also his role in the prosecution of some of the president's political enemies. Kate?
John's laying out some of the major controversial and big moments and things that Todd Blanche has kind of found himself at the center of. But what is he going to be in today? The hot seat. Joining us right now is CNN senior legal analyst, former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, Elie Honig. Els, John laid out a lot of the important issues that Todd Blanche is going to face questions on. But what do you think the most important questions are that he really should be asked?
Well, Kate, there's so many issues that Todd Blanche will be faced with today, and John, of course, highlighted some of the more obvious scandals that he will be confronted on. But I think the biggest overarching question for Todd Blanche today is, how do you see the Justice Department with respect to the president? Do you believe the Justice Department should act independently and use its prosecutorial powers independently? Or do you think DOJ should be a political arm of the president following the president's orders? And Todd Blanche, frankly, has squarely contradicted himself on that exact question. At times, he has publicly said, we are here to uphold the traditional long-standing independence of DOJ. We do the right thing. We don't do anyone's political bidding. Other times, he has said it's a good thing that the president tells us what to do, and we don't exist separate from the president. So I think that's the largest overarching thematic question that Blanche needs to face today.
And when it comes to that also, Ellie, it's like words and actions or words and practices, can also be in contradiction, because you can imagine that, especially take a Thom Tillis, who at this point, he's like, I'm not going to take your word for it anymore.
Well, I think that's a great point, and there has been a disconnect over the last year and a half while Blanche has been deputy AG and then acting AG between the things he says and the things he does. For example, Blanche has said that there was no presidential involvement in the indictments of Jim Comey or Letitia James, yet we can all see the public statements by the president calling for those exact prosecutions. Also, if you look at, for example, the 1776 anti-weaponization slush fund, Blanche has backed away from that. He has said we will not pursue it. But as Senator Tillis was saying, that's not enough. Senator Tillis, and I think others, will expect him to commit that it will not come back. And Blanche has never been questioned and pushed on, do you still stand by this as a good idea? Who came up with this idea? Why did you ever think this would be a good idea? So yeah, he's had a lot of rhetoric out there, but it's never really been drilled down on. And I expect the senators of both parties to do that today.
Yeah, it's going to be quite a moment in the morning for him to be facing these questions. It's good to see you, Ellie. Thank you so much.